Tennessee, David Toulis.
Brought to you by yournews.com. That's yournews.com, full of international and national political news at the top. And at the bottom, the work of yours truly, David Toulis. Nukenomics, as it were, being transferred over to a livelier, maybe less intense platform. That is to say, yournews.com. And we are in the radio business, 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4, live on Facebook at Nougat Radio, just as live as could be. And you can evaluate whether Jeanette was right to squint as she did this morning at my bow tie selection. And my brown jacket, she sometimes doesn't give a proper inspection, and I leave with a flagrant violation of etiquette with bow tie selection and tie. And also live on YouTube and at nougatradio.com, nougatradio.com. Just click on that site and our audio streams automatically. You can hear all of our audio on Facebook. Just go down to the left-hand column on the second button down. There is streaming the radio. Click on the radio, play radio signal, and there we are. And here I am arguing that you should love your neighbor and buy local, and that local economy and free markets are really the context of solutions to the future. Local solutions, local-centric solutions that are apart from statute, apart from law, and apart from police, right? I think the police state that we have in Tennessee and the United States need to be made more painful before we just get rid of them. We disembowel them and disestablish them. And I think some of these systems, some of these cartels, these progressive cartels, will fail on their own. We don't have to do too much pushing on them. We don't have to sue them to overturn them. They will simply collapse with only the very poor and the dependent residing in them and defending them to the last. Right? That would be in our country. We'd probably have the poverty pimps to the last defending the public school system. That is already it is already entirely obsolete. It's not obsolescent. It is obsolete, right? It's there. It has been bypassed entirely by the internet and free market relationships inspired thereon. The intergalactic web, where you have PDFs, you have videos, entirely bypassing the whole idea of centralized gatherings of future gun-free victims in tax-funded, capital-intensive, very stodgy, old, out-of-date, and I say tax-funded and politically protected, politically inspired systems, which are effectively churches, right? The public school is a kind of church for people who don't have God, and there they can learn, their children can learn their virtues and learn a little bit of chaos math in the new form. This is David Toulis, and I want to hear about. I finally got a hold of a young woman. I want you to hear about her arrest. Her name is Valdasha Whaley. She's an A student at Bradley High School, and 17 years old, and was involved in a transportation stop April 8 on sketchy probable cause, very sketchy probable cause. And John Wolf, the inveterate civil rights attorney here in Chattanooga, is on the trail of an abuse of a cousin of Valdasha Whaley, and that cousin is a 33-year-old truck driver who was at the gas station at the same time the traffic stop was taking place. So you had two cars, cousins in both, and Jamichael Parks attempted to make a video of the encounter, unobtrusively videoing from the side of the deputy's area of labor against the free market and against liberty. And his camera was taken from him. He was arrested and had painful shackles put on him. He was told to sit down like a slave, right, a piece of property. And he was abusively treated by Dale Liner, a very courageous officer who stands up for the right and government, right, stands up for big government. and uses a word that begins with the letter M and has an F in the middle of it, and refers to your mother. Okay, it refers to that person. An abusive word used in the presence of not just of Jamichael Parks, but in the presence of Valdasha Whaley. Those words falling from the lips, I believe, of another of Bradley County's finest. Her name is Valdasha Whaley, and I want you to just hear just briefly a brief interview she gave.
Okay, so this is David Toulis, and we're talking with Valdasha Whaley. She is a high school student in Bradley County, and her aunt says she's an A student, and she was among those 4 people arrested April 8 in an incident which involved a Dale Liner, a deputy who took from Jamichael Parks his phone and forbade him to video the traffic stop involving Valdasha Whaley and 2 cousins. So Valdasha, tell my listener what happened there at the Citgo gas station in Cleveland.
Yes, this is what happened. We had left Captain D's and we went to the O'Reilly's, and my cousin Austin Dodd had went into the store, and the male officer had told him it smells like marijuana and whatever, and then they had to exchange some words or something like that, and then when he got back in the car, that's when he told us whatever she had said. Well, he said he smoked earlier or something like that. And that's when she was like, well, I'm not worried about you. I have a headlight to fix, all this and that. So when we left the store, the other sheriff was coming our way, but he had already turned around like before we even passed him. That's when he got behind us. And he pulled us over, and that's when we went to the gas station. Well, as soon as we got pulled over, he came up to the car. Before we even rolled the windows down, he was just like, I smell marijuana. He didn't read us our rights or anything. And that's when he was like, well, I got to search the car. He didn't ask. He just said he has to search the car. So after that is when he pulled Austin, my cousin, out the car. And he they put him on the car, and they was searching him. And that's when, after that, I was the second person to get out the car. And I had to wait until the lady officer came from the O'Reilly's. So when she came, that's when she searched me. And when she was searching me, she searched me hard and kept hitting my wrong area hard and kept saying that there was something in there, and I had everything on me when I did it. And she kept asking me, who threw it on you, who threw it on you, repeatedly. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Nobody threw anything on me. And
so she said, I'm not quite, hold on just a second, Valdasha. She said, who did something on you? What does she mean by that?
Like, who threw something.
Oh, threw. Like, okay, got it.
Like, she was trying to say, like, who threw drugs on me, which nobody had any drugs or threw anything on anyone. So after that, when they all came back when all the police came back to the back, that's when she kept trying to tell them it was me, and I had stuff on me when it wasn't. And so I was trying to see what was going on in the front of the car with my cousin and my brother, and then I was trying to see what was going on. And that short male officer told me to get my A-word back on the car, or I was going to jail with him. And he also told my brother's best friend to get his MFing on the car, or he's taking his A-word to jail too.
And you're talking here, Valdasha Whaley, about Jashawn Hill, who's 19, and he's the Tennessee State University student.
Yes, sir.
So he used profanity in front of you then.
Yes, sir.
As a Bradley County employee.
Yes, sir.
Well, all right. So it was a traffic stop involving Austin Trey Dodd. And is Austin your cousin, or is that your brother?
Yes, that's my cousin.
That's your cousin. And then Raquan Dodd, who's 19. He was next to Austin. Austin was at the driver at the wheel. Raquan was next to him in the front seat, and then you're in the back. You're Valdasha Whaley, and you're in the back with Jashawn Hill, who is the student. Now, he's not a relative, right?
Who, Jashawn Hill?
Yes. Is he a cousin as well?
He's my brother's best friend.
Okay. All right. Well, so how does my listener need to understand what was wrong with this encounter? Was
everything was wrong. They didn't do anything right. They didn't read us our rights. They pulled us over for no apparently reason. Then they were talking rude to us, and we didn't even do anything.
And they were asking you questions. They were interrogating you individually, and the young men were being interrogated separately. And they had not warned you they had not read you the Miranda warning, which warns you not to speak to officers.
At all. At all. They didn't do any of that.
Well, do your cousins and Jashawn Hill, do they know, and do you know that you kind of have to Mirandize yourself? You have to just say, well, I'm not going to say anything or give any information that would incriminate me in court. Did you do that to yourself, or did you feel sort of threatened to talk to the lady officer?
We didn't say anything at all because they had already came up with like that little attitude light.
Yes.
So we didn't say anything at all when he said all that. We would just corroborate it because he already had an attitude light when he came up to the car at first.
And you're talking about Dale Liner, the deputy. Is that right?
I don't know which one had pulled us over. I don't know.
And how many sheriff's deputies' cars were there?
It was about 5 or 6 of them out there.
And does that mean there were 5 or 6 deputies, or were there more than the number of cars?
I don't know. We at the scene, it was 3 male cops, and then that's when that lady had came, and then there was another cop that came, and I think one more after that. I
see. And how long were you there? How long were you?
It was probably almost there for an hour, 45 minutes, posted up.
An hour, or you say between 45 minutes and an hour?
So an hour, yes.
Yes. Have you had encounters with police before, Valdasha?
No, nothing at all. I was terrified.
And do you know whether your cousins or Jashawn Hill will be filing a complaint about this administratively with the department, or consulting a lawyer? You were arrested, you were detained, you were arrested, you were interrogated. No charges were filed against anybody in the pickup truck. Is that correct?
Correct. We were not arrested. We were just detained.
Okay. So in your mind, you were not under arrest. You were just under detention.
Well, basically, they would just threaten us to put us under arrest.
Okay. So being under detention, when you're told you're being detained, that somehow it's not as scary as being under arrest, and your guard is down, perhaps. I would think maybe you're more cautious about what you say and what you allow the officer to do or to find out.
Yes.
All right. Well, listen, Valdasha, thank you very much for chatting with me. I appreciate it very much.
This is David Toulis, and that was Valdasha Whaley of Bradley County. She is a 17-year-old young woman, and she says that the officer used the word MF, is a couple letters in that word, in her presence, and referred to her ass, and also in being searched, it was in public. She was searched in public with a female deputy of Bradley County banging against her private area, as she said, her wrong area, several times, demanding that there was narcotics tucked away in there somehow. And though she was not required to strip, the deputy did prod this young woman's privates in public, and that is right there next to the street. I think it's southeast Dayton Pike. I think is the street in Cleveland, in full view of people passing by. So again, there is this matter of humiliation. There is this matter of public humiliation and embarrassment, not done in the ladies' room or anything like that, but done in public, as Valdasha Whaley says, by deputies of Bradley County. Eric Watson is the sheriff, and he is seeking re-election. And it's not clear in my mind from the opposition that there's any better theory of government. The sheriff is the lawful authority in every county in Tennessee. He's the most powerful man in every county in Tennessee. And so it's really requisite upon him that if there is an officer who speaks language like that, who uses harassing and really evil language upon a member of the public who is subject to constitutional protection, right? Who is protected, that be a firing offense. Now, I want you to know that at Nougat Radio, we have a report, which is an affidavit by Jamichael Parks, her cousin, and in that story, I think it's a document that's already been entered into the data stream of the administrative complaint by Jamichael Parks against Dale Liner. Dale Liner said, "Mind your MFing business and get your ass in the gas station." Those were words given in Jamichael's hearing to Jamichael's cousin, also with him, a man, a student of political science named or criminal justice named Terrell Parks. And the deputy said, "So you think you're tough?" And this is what Dale Liner said to Terrell, and said, "Do you want to go to jail?" Why do we have officers who talk like this to citizens who have done nothing wrong? Liner said to Jamichael Parks, "Give me your phone. Stop recording. You're interfering." And he says, Jamichael says, "I'm minding my own business, and you can't take my phone." And he said twice that he said that twice to the deputy, and the deputy deleted the file. But Jamichael Parks retrieved, I think, about 29 seconds of a video file from the deletion basket that the deputies had managed to find. Liner said, "You just had to be a badass. You just had to be a badass coming over here and causing trouble. You had to be the dumbest, ignorant person I know walking up on a traffic stop." And he said, "Are you trying to be tough? That's just ignorant." And that's Dale Liner, a deputy of Eric Watson, the sheriff of Bradley County. And there was a lot of conversation as the prisoner sat on the curb and the deputy stood over him, harassing him and haranguing him. It really all just justifying himself, justifying his initial seizure of the phone under a pretext of having been offended, under a pretext that somehow a record being made by an innocent, harmless member of the public is violating a law or violating some dignity or some duty of the officer. Listen, you, my listener, you have a right to make a video of anybody in public, right? Anybody in a public place, public building, or a public place, a public venue. You have a right to take a photograph, and I want you to do that. I want you, my listener, to help us. We think that you report and the world to decide. So if you have something worth my knowing about, then you need to contact me, David Toulis. I'm your host here on the David Toulis Show at 92.7 FM Nuka Radio. But I'm also a writer. I am the blogger with the biggest pen, that being a tower on Signal Mountain. But that's just, braggadocious to say that. But I am a working journalist. I work on these stories, and we are going to have a story now that I've had my interview with Valdasha Whaley, a story at yournews.com about her ordeal. She said she was terrified. In her presence, the word MF was used by a Bradley County employee wearing the honor and dignity of the uniform, the military uniform that police and sheriff's deputies today wear. And that this happens in a place where Christianity has had great effect, right? Where Christianity has had great fruit, is simply remarkable, of a representative of the judge. Because after all, the deputy in the biblical understanding of government, the deputy represents the judge. He is the sheriff, and the judge are truly lawful, in God's eyes, lawful government, right? That is the magistrate referred to in Romans 13. The magistrate is he is the judge, and judges in our day, rightly understood, are passive. They wait for cases to be brought to them. The deputy and the sheriff are simply the enforcers of the orders of the judge. Those are lawful, common law, and biblical roles. They really exist. They are ancient as man, and you can see them in the biblical law. You can see their place, a common law origin, and they exercise common law rights that you, my listener, have too. I just want you to know that the deputy exercises rights you have. You have the right of arrest, right? You have, and the right of arrest is the cop and the deputy both use that right to arrest people who are criminals. Now, the problem is, as we have been thinking about it, the problem is that they use this common law authority to arrest people who've done nothing wrong in common law, who've committed no common law crime, and therein is the abuse. And we want really an end to that. We want an end to the custom of thought that allows for traffic stops where there is a young man in a car of four who smells of marijuana, according to the deputy in a conversation that she had with one of Valdasha Whaley's cousins. You smell of marijuana. Well, does that mean that there's narcotic in the car? Well, I would say no, but there's defensible probable cause in that stop, and a search made without a warrant and made without a request. So that means that the deputies had in their mind that they had probable cause to search, because searches are illegal in Tennessee. They're illegal except under probable cause or warrant. But we have today a much looser standard called reasonable suspicion. And I think you need to consider these things. You should always say no, and you should not flap your gums. These young people were not given a Miranda warning, so you have to Mirandize yourself. You have to say, I'm not saying anything or giving anything that might incriminate me in court. So even giving your name when there's no warrant for your arrest, even giving your name is evidence that will be used against you in court. And since you don't know what the officer's claims are, and you don't know what his basis is, you just have to stand your ground. Most people, though, think that the officer has something on them, and that the officer knows exactly who this person is, and you better cooperate. And that's why people cooperate, because they think, maybe with a guilty conscience, they think somehow that the cop has something on them, when of course the cop has nothing on that person at all. And this is David Toulis. That's my name, David Toulis. We're here defending local economy in the free market. 800-8949 is the number. 800-8949. Is there going to be litigation? There might be litigation from the arrest of Jamichael Parks. And Jamichael Parks did the right thing. Within a week of his ordeal, his debasement, his being treated as a black man in old was treated as a piece of property, treated like a bag of potatoes by Deputy Dale Liner in Bradley County. He did the right thing. He wrote an affidavit. And I do recommend that as a very first thing that you should do. Anytime you have an encounter that's adverse to you, right? That means that's bad for you. You need to write an affidavit. Write an affidavit, which is to say just the facts, everything that was said, everything that was done, the times, the dates, the details. Do it immediately. That's my practice. I have an immediate swearing statement of what happened. And I say that's important because when Hanson Melvin was abusively arrested here in Hickson in 2016, he forgot in an affidavit that he wrote pretty quickly afterwards, he forgot an important detail. It's a detail that's just, I would say, a bit of color, but the David Campbell, the cop who got fired and who's now being sued by Hanson, said, "This is government property." In other words, you have to give me your driver's license, and you have to give me your social security number. Though you're just walking in an apartment complex parking lot, I'm demanding this information from you, and you have to give it to me. And why was that? Well, David Campbell said, because it's government property. Is that racist? Is that humiliating? Well, it might be, but it does show that these officers in Chattanooga, who in his case conspired against him, they conspired using their private cell phones to harass Hanson Melvin the moment he returned home from jail after an illegal search and an illegal charge of disorderly conduct. These officers are faithful and loyal among themselves. They have true character and integrity among themselves. Right? And so this man was abused. And the thing he forgot in the affidavit was, because you are on government property. As if somehow an apartment complex where a few people have government subsidies makes the whole place government property, and you being a black, no doubt, are on welfare, and you no doubt belong to us, and you no doubt, because you're black and poor, are subject to me, the white cop here in Chattanooga. I've had enough of that. I've simply had enough of it, and I hope you have too. This is David Toulis, Nooga Radio. 3, 2,